Hey little family, I'm so excited to make this video for you today because I'm going to be showing you some really cool ways to make your own watercolors at home. Now, most of these recipes use really simple materials that you probably already have in your house. I'm going to be using regular markers, really dried out markers, KoolAid packets, and some food coloring. Now the food coloring I'm going to be using is gel food coloring, but regular liquid food coloring works just as well. Let's get started. The first method I'm going to show you is just the regular marker method. You'll need paper, some tin foil, cup of water, some markers, and whatever you're using to paint with. You can use a paintbrush. If you don't have a paintbrush, you could use a Q-tip. Or you can ask somebody in your family if they have an old makeup brush you can use. If you don't have any of these things, you can just be creative and find something you can paint with. So first you'll grab a marker and you're going to scribble it onto a small section of your tin foil. Now if you don't have tin foil, you could also use any form of plastic like a Ziploc baggie or plastic wrap. You can see how the marker doesn't really stick to the tin foil, it just kind of sits on top. So all you do then is dip your brush in water, swirl it around in your marker, and it kind of turns it into a watery kind of paint, just like watercolor. Now if you start to run out of marker on your tin foil, you can always pick it back up and add some more back in there. And you can do this with as many colors as you have. So you can do it with all of your markers, and you'll have a very wide variety of different watercolor paints to use. The next method uses dried out markers. All you'll need is paper, a dried out marker or two, a cup of water, and whatever you're painting with. So as you can see, this marker is not good. So I am just going to set it into my water, and if you watch really closely, you can see the color start to come out. I'm using about a fourth or a half cup of water. I didn't really measure, but it's not a whole lot in there. But you can see that orange ink being pulled out of the marker. Even when markers are dried, there's still ink trapped in them. So this way helps it come out. This is one that I set in there yesterday, and you can see that the tip of the marker is really light colored. That's because it's had enough time for that color to be completely pulled out and come into the water. So the longer you leave your markers in your water, the brighter your colors will be. Here's another one. Look at that tip. It's like barely even purple because all of the purple is now in my water, making my watercolor. The next thing I'm going to use to make watercolors is KoolAid. So you'll need your paper, a KoolAid packet, or any other colored drink mix, your cup of water, and your painting materials. I'm going to start by just using about half of this KoolAid packet. You don't really need to use the whole thing. In a little while, I will dump the rest in there, and you'll be able to see how the color doesn't really change a whole lot. You really only need about 1 to 2 spoonfuls, but you can add just a little bit at a time until you have the color that you're happy with. The last way I'm going to show you, I'm going to be using food coloring. So you'll need your paper, some food coloring. I'm using gel food coloring, but you can also use the liquid kind. You'll need a little cup of water and whatever you're painting with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get just a little bit of my food coloring at a time. So I'm going to use my Q-tip, and I'm just dipping it in there a little bit at a time because a little goes a long way. So you want to just add a tiny bit until you get the color you're happy with. When I tested it, I saw that it was really light, so I added a little bit more. And then I got a color that I liked. So today we learned about how to make our own watercolors 4 different ways. The first way was markers on tinfoil. The second way was using a dried marker. The third used KoolAid packets or any other kind of colored drinking mix. And then the fourth used food coloring. I really hope that you enjoyed making your own watercolors at home, and I cannot wait to see your smiling faces again, hopefully sometime soon. If you need to contact me for any reason, or if you just want to say hi or show me some pictures of some awesome watercolors you made, you can always email me. My email is at the bottom of my page on the new Lowell website. Have a great one, Lowell family. Stay creative.